You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
You are listening now to the Rusty Mike radio station, Goldstein on Gelt show. We have a very special guest with us today, the president of the Federation of Israeli Chambers of Commerce, Uriel Lynn. At the moment, Uriel Lynn is a lawyer who specializes in government and arbitration issues. He has his law degree from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and also a master's degree from the University of California in Berkeley. In the past, in the government of Israel, he was the director of the Israeli Investment Authority for North America. He was also the governor of state revenue, as well as the director general of the Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure. As a former Chaver Knesset, a former member of the Israeli Parliament, Mr. Lynn was the chairman of the Energy Committee, the chairman of the Committee for Road Safety, and also the chairman of the Constitution, Law, and Justice Committee. So we're very honored to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's nice to be with you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So let me ask you the first question, because a lot of our listeners, I don't think, are necessarily familiar with the Israeli Chambers of Commerce. Maybe you could tell us, in your position as the president, what does the organization actually do, and what do you do in the organization?
Well, we have business organizations in Israel. Chamber of Commerce, of course, is a well-known business organization all over the world. It was really born in France in 1805 by the Emperor Napoleon. And it's quite organization all over the world, we know very well, which represent the business sector. A different way by which it's being organized. In the United States, it's voluntary. In Europe, it's compulsory. You have to be a member in a Chamber of Commerce. In Israel, it's voluntary. But since in the very early years of the Israeli state, the economic policy was very selective. That is, in the very early years, we said, well, manufacturing is important, building is important, and agriculture is important, and all the other sectors of the business are not that important. They will have to do on their own. So in Israel, we don't have one business organization. We have few. The Chamber of Commerce, the Federation, really represent today the largest part of the economy, because the largest part of the economy today is comprised of trade and services. And this is the way, the same structure all over the Western world. Today, all over the world, the sector of commerce, trade, and services is about 65 to 70% of the GDP. Mm-hmm. In Israel, it's 65% of GDP. Oh, wow. And this is really the sector which creates most of the jobs in the economy. And we represent primarily this sector in Israel.
How many members are there of the chamber?
We have a few thousands all over. We don't really have all the small shops and all the small boutiques and so on. But most of our members are, of course, companies. They're not individuals. And they represent all the importers and all the wholesalers and a lot of the networking of Shupersal and so on and so on, you know.
Mm-hmm. Wow, okay.
And a lot is also in the service sector, because the service sector is developing all the time, either individual or through business or toward major parts of the economy and so on.
I see. So it's very practical in helping to build up the Israeli economy. Let's, in fact, talk for a moment about that. You were quoted as saying that the Finance Ministry and the Bank of Israel withstood the pressure to bail out failing organizations, yet in the U.S., we saw the U.S. and Europe really buckled to that pressure. What made Israel able to stick to such a policy?
Well, let's put it this way. It didn't start in the last year. It started really in the year 2003, when the present Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, was the Minister of the Treasury. And he took very seriously his position as a Minister of the Treasury at the time. So he analyzed the economy, and he realized that we have to be much more rigid and you have to apply more discipline in controlling the budget. And he did exactly that. And he started to build a tradition that we cannot really live beyond our means. Later on, Ronnie Baron was also very strong in applying this policy, and I would say that Steinitz and really the Stanley Fischer are completing and continuing this kind of a policy. So since 2003, this is really the policy in Israel. And in addition to that, when the global crisis really occurred, and also we had a spill-off also into the Israeli economy, we didn't rush to pour money into the financial structure. We have to admit also that the financial structure in Israel was quite strong, and no major financial organization was about to collapse or go bankrupt.
Was that just good luck, or?
Yes, it is, definitely. You're right about it. And but the large holding companies, those who really started to invest abroad in Eastern Europe and so on, some of them appear to be a little shaky. So, but it was still within control, and the government did not pour a lot of money, so everybody has to stand on his own, and we didn't have the same crisis, the same dimension that you had it in United States or in England or in Europe.
I see. We are talking to Uriel Lynn, former member of Knesset and now the president of the Organization of Israeli Chambers of Commerce. Thank you very much for that. Let me just follow through. As a result of what's happening with the overall economic crisis, how do you think Israel is going to emerge compared to other Western economies?
Well, we have to understand, we're doing quite well. And we're doing quite well because we made quite a structural change in the Israeli economy. We really exposed the Israeli economy to competition. We used to have, for many, many years, very highly protected industries like in the textile and so on. And later on, we decided that we need to withstand competition in the world, and this is exactly what we did. First of all, having a free trade agreement with the United States, and also having a free trade agreement with Europe, two major economies, and we are channeled our energies to the area in which we are very competitive and we are very advanced. So as a result of that, the structure today of the Israeli economy, I would say we have the traditional manufacturing, we have the state-of-the-art, very advanced knowledge-based industries, and we also have a very strong service sector, which is like shipping, airlines, banking, software, and so on and so on. So the economy is really based on those three major sectors, and definitely we are to a certain extent being hurt whenever there is a crisis abroad, because we are very much depends on foreign trade. We have today exports, product and services in the order of close to $84 billion. It went down in the year 2009, but this is more or less the kind of volume that we managed to create. And we are dependent on world markets, so especially if the Israeli shekel is being really revalued against foreign currencies.
When you say revalued, isn't it sort of being artificially maintained at this level by the Bank of Israel?
No, it's not really. The Bank of Israel is trying to avoid, I would say, a landslide, that is, avoid a situation where the Israeli shekel will be revalued too much, too deeply. because you have to understand, for example, the Israeli shekel toward the dollar used to be 4.5 shekel to a dollar, 4.8 to a dollar. Today it's used to be for a long time 3.7. So this is a major change. So we had to really not to allow it to be revalued much too much. And this is what he did. It was really applying a certain control. But today still the Israeli shekel is very strong, much stronger than it used to be toward the dollar and also toward the European currencies. Let's say like comparing to 2 or 3 years ago. For example, 2.5 years ago, the Israeli shekel was 8 Israeli shekel toward the pound. Today it's 5.5 Israeli shekel toward a pound. So we are talking here about very significant changes.
And do you think that that the strength of the shekel will stay at this level, or is it reasonable to assume that it might weaken a little bit over the next?
No, it will weaken. It will weaken, definitely. I mean, we cannot really hold the shekel at such a level for a very long time. But whenever you have a crisis like the one that you have right now in Europe, so the Israeli shekel is being revalued against the euro. And but I think that with the process that the European economy and so on will get out of the present crisis and strengthen a little, then will devalue the Israeli shekel. But we learn to live with that. But definitely, it's not really a stimulus for creating more export.
I see. We are talking to the president of the Federation of Israeli Chambers of Commerce, Uriel Lynn, former member of Knesset. We're just about out of time, but I'd just like to ask you one more question. The World Competitiveness Yearbook, which recently came out, cited that certain challenges that Israel faces. Certainly, we were rated tops amongst our peers in many sectors, but one area that was mentioned was the problem with the size of the public sector and the importance to reduce the bureaucracy on the business sector. As a businessman myself, I've certainly seen that. But do you see that there are steps that the government is taking to help to, in fact, reduce the public sector and make the bureaucracy incumbent on businesses a little bit simpler?
They think about it, but actually they don't know what to do. We still have a problem with the mentality and the thinking of the people in the Treasury. They think about it. They think about it with a good intent, but they don't know how to tackle this problem. We have today a process whereby all social problems and environmental problems are being imposed on the business sector. The government found a very easy way. Say, hey, we have a problem here with packaging, so let's impose it on the business sector. They will have to do it. They will have, and we are not going to do it, then we'll get fines and so on and so on. And this is really very wrong because nobody really sees the full forest. Everybody sees a certain section, limited section. They don't realize that there is today a trend, loading more and more on the business sector, that later on it's going to be too much. So from time to time the government say, hey, I'm going to put some money, allocate some money to a very limited areas like the chief scientist and so on. But this is really very, very unimportant because the most important thing is to let the business sector grow and really bring to a full level its real potential. That's the important thing, and this is where bureaucracy and burdening on the business sector is all the time working against. They think about it, but yet I don't think that they know exactly how to make an advance in this area, and I must also admit that the government of Israel as a whole yet didn't realize how important it is to increase the level of service, the culture of the civil service here in our country.
Okay, well, hopefully that based on your good thoughts and your advice, maybe we will see a change in direction sometime.
I'm working on it, believe me.
Thank you. No, as the president of the Federation of Chambers of Commerce, I'm sure this is a very big issue that you deal with and talk about all the time. So I would like to thank you once again for joining us on the Goldstein on Gelt show on the Rusty Mike radio station. We have been talking to Uriel Lynn, former member of Knesset and the president of the Federation of Israeli Chambers of Commerce. And we would once again like to thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.